again. So I mentioned earlier that my camera is messed up and it's giving me an error code, so you can't see how lovely I am this morning. But I did procrastinate, put off the meeting 30 minutes so I could get 30 more minutes of sleep. Now we're all together and happy to be together, right? So I have a plan for today, and we'll just do this for as long as it takes, and then I'll let you go. First off, I wanted to make sure everyone saw the library announcement where you can, it tells you how to go about making your appointment for the library to make copies or use the computer or the printer or whatever it is. Did everyone see that?
Yes, or I did.
Everybody else?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, so the second thing is, now I'm going to share my screen.
Miss Knight, did you ever get in touch with the ProctorU as far as if we went up to the school, are they going to allow multiple people in the same room?
Yeah, I have a plan about that too.
Okay.
So let me see how I want to do this.
Hey, Miss Knighton.
Uh-huh.
You're going to be recording this, correct?
It's recording, yes.
Okay, my son is in math right now, and he's having a really hard time, so I'm going to be back and forth between this and trying to help him on his math. Is that okay? Am I allowed to do that? Like, this online school is throwing us all for a loop.
I know, it's fine. Just do what you got to do. It'll be
All
recorded. Right. It takes time to download the recording and then get it uploaded. And my internet's not that great either. So just give it some time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen now. So I have posted this, and I posted an announcement about this as well. Under your syllabus tab, it's the updated calendar. And my computer keeps freezing up with my mouse. It just takes it a second. Hang on. So where are we? We are here, week 5. I bolded the day that it actually is when we're meeting. This is the beginning of our week 5, because I mean, it's even confusing to me, so I know it's probably confusing to you guys. We're starting week 5. This is today. This week, you will finish studying respiratory part 1 and get ready for the test. Test questions are due by Monday night so that I can finish uploading the test. Then September 25th, the next Friday, we'll have our exam and our test review, and then you will start studying the second part of respiratory, and your first Kaplan pediatric test is assigned for that week whenever you get to it. Okay, it's not the end of the world if it's not submitted by the due date. There's 3 though. There's an A, a B, and a C, and hopefully y'all have seen those since you got on there to find the math test. But by spreading it out, it's just a way to help you not wait till the last minute. So I've got our plan down. After that, we have pain, and then we do infectious disease and vaccines. So those are our topics for exam 3, the second half of respiratory, pain management, and infectious disease. After that, we have GI. Cardiac is divided into 2 sections. So I did change this from the original plan. I had hoped we could get cardiac in all at one time, but I really think that's a terrible idea because it's never worked out before. So I split cardiac into 2 sections like it's always been. So exam 4 will have GI and cardiac. Those are 2 big chapters anyway. So that'll be all the material for exam 4. And then for the last exam, or exam 5, we have hematology, neuro and endocrine, and emergencies. So neuro and endocrine are on the same day because I only look at certain things in each of those chapters. I don't do the entire chapter of either of those. I've got certain things that I've picked out, and the PowerPoints are not as long for those 2. You know, you're just responsible for the material that I cover on the PowerPoint and correlate that with what's in your textbook. And with emergencies, it's a big PowerPoint, but it's really not much in your book. Yes, we have an emergency chapter in our book, but the majority of what I've got on the PowerPoint is from PALS, or Pediatric Advanced Life Support. And it's things that I have found in my practice are essential or important to know if you plan on being around as a nurse when a kid could have an emergency situation. So the main thing that you study for that chapter is my PowerPoint. And then I have a PowerPoint that is just straight up questions. And when you watch it in PowerPoint mode, then, you know, you try to figure out what the right answer is. And when you try to advance the slide, it will underline the correct answer. So it has the correct answers marked. So I've got one of those that I'll post. It's not going to be a recording. It's just questions. And you can just play with that as much as you want to. So that is the plan. What I do not have included on here, and I'm probably not going to mess with, is there are additional videos that I'm adding as we go along. And I don't want to keep going and updating this calendar and making you reprint or whatever. Just be aware that the videos and articles that I know about, I have listed, but on, let's see, on Canvas, I did something different to point out if I have added a video for you to watch. Let me show you real quick. I wish somebody would give me an extra $100 so that I could get the real fast, fancy internet out here. That'd be nice. No offers?
Your
At least
internet
you have the
is a
option.
million times better than some of the other classes.
Yeah, you have
your internet
really
is-
good internet.
Okay,
is
great.
Very well compared
We
to
don't
others.
have music sessions in yours, so it's good.
I do have
Oh,
a question.
good.
You said
Yeah, go ahead.
chapter 45 is split into 2 sections.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to test over the first half and then on the next exam, the second half.
Yes. So I'm about to show you how you'll know what topics.
Okay. And will you show us in the book where to stop? Like, is there-
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Not sure what the problem is here. Well, while we're waiting on that, to answer your question, Zoe, one place that I'm showing you is for, where does respiratory start? Right here. On the updated course calendar that is posted now on Canvas, part 1, that is the beginning of part 1, since I've got 2 recordings for part 1. The beginning is the parts of your chapter that talk about anatomy through everything that's on that PowerPoint, ending with croup. And so I wrote this here, and it's also on Canvas. So I'm not telling you that it's in order with the chapter. It's not that simple. It's just the topics that are on the PowerPoint. You will correlate with the chapter. And today's stuff, wait, let's see. Yeah, this is confusing me here. Respiratory Part 2 PowerPoint record. No, let's see, where are we? My mouse isn't working good. Respiratory part, oh yeah, yes. Okay, I remember. Respiratory Part 1 recordings with an S, anatomy through croup. We're gonna stop with croup. You will see that Part 2 for our next exam will start with epiglottitis and end with asthma. But there are certain things on that PowerPoint that are certain things in the chapter that are not on the PowerPoint, like cystic fibrosis. I don't have time to cover that. And so that part of the chapter, it's not going to be on the test. What you might want to do before you delve into the chapter, and in fact, I changed the wording from read the chapter to review the chapters. You might want to look at the PowerPoint before you study the chapter, so you know exactly what you're responsible for that test. The topics are specifically on the PowerPoint. Let's see if it's pulled up Canvas yet. Okay. Okay, so on make this be smaller. So we started, when I said anatomy, this is our first PowerPoint that we had. We started in respiratory with talking about the differences in airway between adults and kids, right? So that's where it all begins for airway for this test. Everything on these first couple of slides is about that. Then we reviewed the types of retractions. That's going to be important. All of this is about the respiratory system. So that should be basically the beginning of the respiratory chapter. Respiratory distress versus failure. And then it starts in your, my mouse is being weird, I'm sorry. So our first disease process from the respiratory chapter is viral pharyngitis, and then we have strep throat, group A strep, okay? This is where the first recording ended and the second recording began because it cut me off when I was talking about strep throat, so I kind of restarted it. That's what I posted last night.
I have one more question. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
For whatever reason, chapter 34, the ill child, my Canvas doesn't have a video lecture. It only has.
No, there's not one.
Okay, and then the same with respiratory?
I posted it. It's there now. You should have 2 video lectures for respiratory now on Canvas.
Yeah, I just re-uploaded mine. I don't have anything but the additional videos.
Okay, well, I will, as soon as this works for me, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so in the second part of the recording, like I said, it's going to start with strep, and then we talk about tonsillectomy, adenoidectomy, then apnea, and I called this Brewy because that's just the way I'm used to saying it, but honestly, after watching the video last night, I think it's pronounced brew, and that makes more sense since we already have a term called Brewy. So I'm probably saying it wrong on the recording, but we talked about bruise and then croup. So the rest of the PowerPoint is all about croup. That is the end for this test. Croup is the end. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So this is y'all's Canvas. You've got the PowerPoint and the recording for physical assessment, and then the second part of the physical assessment recording was from class. Then for the ill child, there's only the PowerPoint and the child life video. It was just a simple PowerPoint and a pretty simple chapter. It's just basically focused on how the child that's in the hospital copes with being in the hospital. That's all it's about. The kinds of feelings they have, the kinds of things that would stress a toddler versus an older child. All the different age groups, everything we've been talking about with the developmental stages, what types of things are more likely to stress an infant versus the toddler versus the preschooler, and how can you as a nurse help? You know, when it says the ill child, that means the hospitalized child, okay? So that's what that one's about. And then your respiratory. So here's your PowerPoint with the little file attachment here. Here are your two recordings. Did you see this, Zoe?
I did. Honestly, I was looking for like the PowerPoint with the lecture on top of it, like you've done previously.
I don't even know what I did previously because I have to figure this out every time. So PowerPoint and then recording. Okay, well, this is it, okay? So when you click on this, it will take you to a page
I did see that.
that has the video. That's the second part, okay?
Okay.
And you know, the other way to find it is by, oh Lordy mercy, here we go, okay. To me, it's complicating to post it in so many places, but they like for us to do that for some reason. If you, yeah, here. If you click on the lecture and notes, it also takes you to the videos and any articles. So what I was trying to show you earlier was, since the course calendar may not point out each video that I've posted, I'm adding that on Canvas. Like, for example, for physical assessment, I put -assessment videos to remind you to click on this tab because that's where those extra videos are. And here, click on this for the child life and IV videos. And then if you click here, you'll see some videos that I posted last night about identifying respiratory distress and croup. And these are really good videos. And in fact, that is the next thing that I had for us to do. The last thing I had for us to do was look at this. So clicking on lecture and notes will be another way to make sure you have reviewed everything you need to review. So you're only responsible for the diseases or topics discussed on the PowerPoints that you've been given thus far. There's the video here that's really good, recognizing respiratory distress. It's a hideous child, but we'll have to try to ignore that and just focus on what it's going to show us. And then there's a really good croup video, and these have sounds, real sounds that are good to help us recognize the difference in stridor and grunting and things like that. And then there's another one about distress versus failure. So these are really good videos. And then here again are your recordings. So there's two different ways of the lecture that you can find these. And that's all I have on this one. So if you can't get one to open, try going through this link. I would like to look at these. What time is it? 9:50. If y'all don't mind, if the internet will cooperate. I don't know that you probably have not had a chance to watch the second part of the video that I just posted last night about the Cruet stuff. So, uh-oh, did y'all go away?
I'm still here.
Okay, your faces went away though. I don't know why.
Still
Oh, I
here.
quit sharing my video.
Yeah, I quit sharing my video because my cat's standing on my laptop. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. Okay, maybe that's all it was.
I look
Okay,
like a little hobo.
me too. So I'm gonna try. This is only 4 minutes, and I just want to go over this. This is something we would have done in class together, if it will work. And I tried to skip the intro and like speed on ahead for the part that I shared with y'all.
Things is causing respiratory compromise. Typically, the compensation consists of an increase in the rate and work of breathing. That increase will increase minute ventilation, allowing the child to exhale more carbon dioxide when gas exchange is impaired. Signs of respiratory distress include retractions, sternal retractions, for instance, because of the flexible, compliant breastbone, as well as intercostal retractions. And this is an example of increased effort resulting in muscles exaggerating the spaces between the ribs or in the sternum. Use of accessory muscles, such as the strap muscles in the neck, nasal flaring, and grunting, an expiratory noise that's designed to apply some heat. Children in respiratory distress typically are anxious. This is an uncomfortable feeling, and with that stress, they oftentimes have tachycardia. These are some examples as well of signs of respiratory distress. The child who wants to sit upright and is unable to lie flat comfortably. The child in the left looks anxious, and the child in the right is demonstrating increased work of breathing. Respiratory failure, on the other hand, is at the other end of the spectrum and is defined by inadequate oxygenation and ventilation. Essentially occurs when compensatory mechanisms fail to maintain gas exchange. Interestingly, respiratory failure can occur without preceding respiratory distress, meaning it can happen when there is depression of respiratory effort, typically by something like a poisoning, which depresses mental status, or seizures, or severe weakness, leading to inadequate respiratory effort. Signs of respiratory failure when the compensatory mechanisms are no longer able to sustain gas exchange include desaturation or cyanosis despite supplemental oxygen, the appearance of increased effort leading to poor air entry. In other words, lots of work for very little gain. This may be characterized by a sound of gasping when the child inspires, head bobbing, which is an exaggerated form of accessory muscle use in which the head literally will bob as the muscles of the neck and shoulders are trying to participate in gas exchange. Seesaw or paradoxical respirations where the abdomen and chest move in the opposite ways than they usually do. And sounds of severe obstruction, such as stridor. A hallmark of respiratory failure, to distinguish it from respiratory distress, is a change in mental status. When oxygen levels fall and carbon dioxide rises, this is a very stressful feeling and results in sympathetic stimulation and agitation. As carbon dioxide continues to rise, it has a sedating effect on the central nervous system, leading to a child who's lethargic, sleepy, or obtunded. The child who appears to have increased work of breathing desaturation, and sleepiness for obtundation. This is one in whom we need to be very concerned, has transitioned from respiratory distress to respiratory failure, and may progress to respiratory arrest and cardiac arrest.
Okay. Now. Okay, y'all still with me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that first video, it was blurry at first, but then that was just my internet. It won't be like that. It got better. And then this one too is really good. But on that one, did you hear, I know it was quick, but did you hear grunting and stridor and the gasping? But stridor and grunting, I really want to make sure that you understand what those sound like so that you can recognize it. Did you hear grunting?
I didn't really hear the grunting. I did hear the stridor, but I didn't really hear
Okay.
the grunting.
So when y'all go back and watch these, know that they're short, focus on the sounds, and there's more than one. And y'all, I got all of these from Open Pediatrics. A lot of these videos come from Open Pediatrics, and the videos are some are made for nurses, some are made for physicians, and it doesn't matter. Like the croup one, I think it's the croup one that might be more geared toward a physician. I can't remember for sure. I watched so many last night, but they're really informational. And so don't get hung up on if it talks about, having to diagnose something. It's because they're speaking to a physician. But the symptoms and the treatments that you'll be providing from a nursing standpoint, all that stuff is the same. So they're valid, reliable, good videos. It's a very reputable site that I use a lot in my course, and it's free. So you guys can go to Open Pediatrics and look at this stuff on your own. And there's more than I could post. I didn't want to overwhelm you with it, but it's full of good stuff. Now this, we are not going to watch this whole thing. It says 17 minutes. Goodness, we're not going to watch all this. I just want to see.
Tachypnea.
Yeah.
When a child has a problem of any kind that interferes with gas exchange, or they need to excrete more gas, as in the case of a time when they're producing more CO2 than normal, their very first attempt at compensating for that is to increase respiratory rate. And so tachypnea is by far the most common and universal sign of respiratory distress in an infant. Unlike an adult who does have a more expandable chest cavity and stronger intercostal muscles, the infant breathes already at a fairly high lung capacity. And so that their ability to increase volume, tidal volume, by compensatory mechanisms is limited. It's much more efficient for them to breathe fast. And that's why tachypnea is the somewhat uniform, universal sign of respiratory distress. Now there's comfortable tachypnea, which typically occurs when an infant is demonstrating a compensation for some primary lung problem like interstitial edema, something that will reduce compliance of the lungs. And by being more tachypnic, they'll increase minute ventilation, which is tidal volume times respiratory rate. And this quiet, comfortable tachypnea can actually get to pretty significant rates. It's not unusual for a young infant to be able to breathe at 70, 80, 90, even 100 times a minute and not look particularly uncomfortable until one stops to really count that respiratory rate. Of course, breathing that fast uses a lot of energy, and so while the infant may be able to maintain that for a period of time, it's one warning sign that respiratory failure or decompensation may develop. Nasal flaring. The other signs of respiratory distress that are important to look for are nasal flaring, which is essentially a way of increasing the size of the upper airway, which is a somewhat high resistance place for air to flow into. And by flaring the nostrils, one is making that passage just a bit larger. Retractions. Another sign is retractions. Retractions occur when there is collapse of soft tissue because of muscular effort. And one can see retractions in a number of places when an infant is demonstrated increased work of breathing. And so their muscle activity is increased in an effort to increase tidal volume of the lung. But this is a really limited compensatory mechanism because of the shape and size of their chest. Retractions can be seen in a number of places. Suprasternal retractions, or the jugular notch, it's a common place. In between the ribs, called intercostal retractions. A very common place is substernally or subcostally, which you can see being demonstrated on this baby as an example of when the abdominal muscle significantly contracts and reveals the edges of the rib cage. In a very young infant who has a very compliant chest wall, one might even see the sternum collapsing significantly because of their effort of breathing. And the muscular effort is strong enough to make that soft cartilaginous sternum collapse. And those are, of course, sternal retractions as opposed to subcostal or substernal retractions. Grunting. Another sign of respiratory distress is grunting. We're going to demonstrate grunting in just a moment, but grunting is a mechanism by which the baby tries to maintain lung volume. It's essentially closure of the glottis and breathing against that closed glottis to provide some PEEP to oneself, and therefore hopefully maintain alveolar volume. And so our baby is now going to do a demonstration of grunting. Thank you. Grunting, as you can see, is an expiratory noise. It's sort of low pitched and coming from deep in the throat because that's where the closed glottis is occurring. Seesaw breathing.
Okay, so you can finish that when you have time, but do you guys know what PEEP is?
I'm sorry, what is?
PEEP, when she talked about grunting and how grunting is the baby using the closed glottis to generate PEEP, to try to maintain lung volume. What is PEEP? That's the second time she mentioned PEEP.
I honestly don't know. What is it?
So PEEP stands for positive end expiratory pressure. Positive end expiratory pressure. So we are born, or we have naturally a physiologic PEEP. And I want to draw, and I don't know, y'all know how my drawings go. Don't know if it'll work. I have a touch screen, but I just really don't know if it'll work. But we have, yeah, nothing's happening when I touch my screen. Where can I go to draw, annotate? Aha. We have to keep our lungs from collapsing at end expiration. Every time we exhale, if our lungs completely collapsed, that would make it very difficult to take the next breath. So you have your lungs. Oh, I feel like I'm a Khan Academy person now. Ooh, yeah. Okay. So we have our little alveoli. This is a kind of a too big of a marker, but you have these little alveoli way down in your lower airways, right? Everybody with me? This is coming from your little
Yes.
bronchioles, which come from your big bronchus, which that's a terrible picture there. And then you have your trachea. Okay, or your main bronchus, I mean. So these little alveoli, we don't want them to collapse. When people talk about they have a collapsed lung, literally what they mean is there's so much atelectasis. Well, in many cases, there's so much atelectasis or so many alveoli that have collapsed that it's useless. It's not working anymore. And we have to re-expand those alveoli or re-recruit the alveoli. Those are terms that you'll hear.
Is that
So-
where the surfactant and stuff comes in?
Surfactant is only an issue in the first 24 hours of life. So that's only
Okay.
a newborn issue. And we will talk about that. I believe it's briefly mentioned in part 2 of respiratory, and we compare respiratory distress syndrome versus everything else. Respiratory distress syndrome has to do with surfactant and only applies to the first 24 hours of life. And yeah, that's more of a lubrication issue. And without it, it makes it hard. The inhalation expiration process hard. With PEEP, God gave us physiologic PEEP of about 4 to 5. That's considered physiologic PEEP. Centimeters of water, 4 to 5 centimeters of H2O. Okay, that is how you talk about PEEP in centimeters of water. That's the pressure that we naturally have to keep our alveoli open at end expiration. I'm going to stop right there and see if that makes sense. When we exhale to prevent our alveoli and our lungs from collapsing, we have 4 to 5 centimeters of pressure, water pressure, that keeps them open naturally. That's our physiologic PEEP, okay? When we get sick, when our lungs get sick and there's crud and mucus and swelling, it oftentimes requires a higher PEEP to keep those alveoli open. When we talk about in part 2 of respiratory, we will talk about ventilators, and one of the settings is PEEP on the ventilator. And I'll say to you, if you walk into your patient's room and you glance at the ventilator and you see that they're only on, 5 or 6 of PEEP, then that tells you something right off the bat about how sick their lungs are. It's like a good sign. But if they're on 10 of PEEP, that's a terrible sign, because that means it is taking an excessive amount of pressure, positive pressure, to keep their lungs open. And the more positive pressure you put into someone's lungs, the more risk they have for developing a pneumothorax or some type of pneumo, because we breathe by negative inspiratory force. When we inhale, that's negative pressure, negative inspiratory force, or NIF pressure, NIF pressure. And you can remember that because if you bag a patient, you have to put a mask on their face and squeeze an ambu back. And what is that called? What kind of ventilation is that called? Positive pressure ventilation, or PPV. And it talks about that in CPR and in BLS, providing positive pressure ventilation. When we force air into someone's lungs, that's positive pressure ventilation. The higher the pressure, the more dangerous it is for their lungs. But sometimes that's what it takes because their lung compliance is so poor because of the swelling and the damage that's occurring in there from their illness. So physiologic PEEP, a healthy PEEP is 4 to 5 centimeters of water. So when she says grunting is the baby's effort to increase their own PEEP, they're pushing against that closed glottis, trying to generate more PEEP. It's like they're trying to be their own ventilator. They need help keeping their airways open because they're lower airways, because they're trying to collapse. They're just about ready to give up. Does that make any sense at all?
Yes.
It's like turning the setting up on the vent to 8, a PEEP of 8, or a PEEP of 10. The baby's trying to do that on their own when they grunt. And that is why I tell you in the second part of the lecture that, or maybe it was the first part, I don't remember, but grunting is bad as far as the signs of respiratory distress. What's one of the scariest or most alarming signs, and grunting is the answer, because that's just about all they have left to give. And we'll talk about that more in future lessons, but I just wanted to clarify what PEEP is. And then here we have the CRUIT video, and I'm not gonna watch that one with you. I want you to watch that on your own. You can watch it before or after you watch the second recording that I posted last night, but it will give you some more sounds of stridor and just reiterate. I think that it's good to do the PowerPoint first, the recording first, and then by watching this video, when you hear things that somebody else talks about referring to CRUIT, you're like, yeah, I remember that. Okay, yep, I knew that. Yep, that's what she said. Okay, yep, that's right. I got that. That's kind of how I did. I watched it after I recorded, and it just kind of clarified. Yeah, I covered that. No, I didn't mention that, but that's a good point. Stuff like that. So, I think that's all I've got, y'all. Do you have any questions?
You gonna do
I
that
don't.
pre-test thing again, or is that just kind of a one-off?
What you talking about? Say it again.
Where you like reviewed, not really what was, well, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I really don't have anything else to give you except, just going over the topics. I would go back. I don't think this test is that hard, honestly, because you've got your physical assessment chapter that's pretty black and white as far as, oh my annotation stayed. I need to clear that. Clear all drawings. Okay. The physical assessment stuff is pretty straightforward. The ill child, I think that even if you didn't watch it, you could figure it out based on everything else we've learned about children. But, don't do that. I want you to review the PowerPoint. And didn't I tell you that I left my notes on the PowerPoint where you could, since I didn't have a recording for the ill child?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, my notes are on there. There's not any articles that will be tested on. It's just going to be the material and your student test questions. And I'm not sure how many I'm going to choose yet. And knowing your respiratory, your anatomical differences, remembering that, yes, you need to know the facts, but the questions will be more focused on scenarios recognition of certain things, priority actions, nursing interventions related to the disease process or the respiratory distress that you have identified. So, you know, it may not tell you this patient has croup. It may say, it may list the symptoms of croup and expect that you understand this is a patient with croup, and then want to know how you're going to respond to this kid. But it's easy stuff. I mean, you only have what, like 4 or 5 pathologies that we talked about in this chapter. Viral pharyngitis, so a viral sore throat, strep throat, tonsillectomy, adenoidectomy, which is basically post-op care, and croup. That's it. So it's really not hard material. And to me,
Well, I had to ask.
oh, I know. It's just compared to the last test, to me, this is more interesting because we're finally talking about nursey stuff. I mean, the other stuff was nursey stuff too, but we're talking about sick people stuff, and it's just more interesting and easier to learn, I think. If you haven't done your test question, do a good job with those. And so, do I have it? Let's see, I have a list here. Let me see quick. Lacey, are you still with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you still wanting to come to BIPSI?
I mean, if we're gonna do Proctor anyways, I'll just stay at home.
Is Robert or Jessica Welch in this class?
Yes, ma'am.
Jessica,
Yes.
are you going to come?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you already have an appointment with Proctor U?
No, I'm gonna make it today.
Okay, let me know what time your appointment is so I can make sure, so I know when to expect you on campus, okay? And
Okay.
Robert, you're there too, huh?
Yes,
Do you have an appointment yet?
I don't.
Okay, so same with you. Y'all just let me know. And to answer the earlier question, what I'll do is if both of your appointments are if y'all's appointments are going to overlap, then I'll put one in one room and the other person in another room, so we don't have to worry about it. We're going to use our nursing classrooms up there, so it'll be fine. I'll be in my office doing work, and I'm going to unlock the classrooms. One of you can go in one room and the other can go in the other room. I just need to know when to expect you. And, you know, give yourself time to get your laptop set up and plugged in and connected to the internet, you know, and troubleshoot problems. So if your appointment's at 9:15, you know, I'd be there by 8:45. But y'all just let me know. I'm planning on just working from my office that day. I'll bring my laptop to the school and we'll do test review just like normal, but I'll just be doing it from BIPSI that day. But we had a 2-hour-long faculty meeting yesterday, and it was stressful because you guys are stressed and we're stressed. And literally for 2 hours with the dean in the conference, we cannot make it work where everyone can come on campus to test. It is not going to happen. We tried and we tried and we tried, and it is impossible with the restrictions that are still in place. And we are all on the same page. Miss Madry, Miss Humphrey, everybody in second level, third level, everybody is going to do the same thing, basically. You know, Proctor U is what we're doing. If you have terrible internet service and need to come to BIPSI, then we'll make that happen. We will find you a room to sit in at BIPSI. That is not a problem. But we cannot have the whole class up there. And it's not fair to say half of you have to pay and half of you don't have to pay. And even if we did say that, that would mean that you come to BIPSI and use our computers to take it on Canvas. and we don't have enough seats in the computer lab with social distancing rules to make that happen. And we tried between the 2 computer labs that we have on campus, and we cannot make that happen. So everybody's just got to calm down and accept that this is the way that it is, and spread the love and the peace and the happiness, and we're going to have to get through it. I know that y'all are stressed out, but I'm telling you, some of your instructors are about to jump off a bridge. So just be real careful how you talk to your instructors. Be very careful how you talk to the dean, because I'm not liking some of what I'm hearing, and it doesn't look good from a professional standpoint. But I know everybody's stressed out, but we've got to just do what we got to do. Somebody was about to say something. Nothing? Y'all can yell at me if you want to and get it out of your system. I won't be offended.
I don't. I'm not gonna yell or say anything. I just think they were more worried about the timing of exams that interfered with classes, especially when other like if you have exams in those classes same day during same time.
So that was also a big part of the meeting, and is being worked on and resolved. And I think, wasn't the issue there when they were trying to get it worked out where it could be on campus?
No, ma'am.
Oh, it's with Proctor Q?
No, it's specifically with adult nursing.
Right, but is it with doing it with Proctor U or
No,
trying?
It's
having it during a
time. But what's happening is, because we're all split up into different groups for sim lab and peds and whatever, the way that it's worked out is the test time and date has changed at least 3 times. And what it's currently set at, you'll have students that will be in peds literally until the start of the test, and then you won't be able to finish your entire testing allotted slot because you have to be in sim lab.
Okay, but that's not going to be the reality. So our meeting was to resolve those issues. If that is going to happen, then Mr. L has sent the sim lab schedule to Ms. Humphrey, and all of that is being worked out. If people need to get switched in sim lab, it is difficult because y'all's adult nursing is split between 2 different days, and there is no extra time for her to schedule. And she did what she was told to do by the dean, by checking with you guys to see how many would want to come to campus, with no expectation that the entire class would want to do it. Well, that's impossible. And so it's just our best efforts could not make it happen, and all it's done is confuse the situation. So
I'd agree with that.
I'm telling you that we tried, and we're at each other's throats yesterday about it. And it's I'm telling you, to the point of tears. So it was very, very hard, and we tried from every angle to fix it.
Have they thought about, like, I know that this is like kind of midway through the game, but have they thought about maybe switch, even if we can't all be in the same class, which that I still don't understand, since we're all online, why can't we all be in the same class? That's part A. Part B, have they thought about switching everybody to adult nursing on Thursday? Like, we all have peds on Friday with you, have all of adult like on Thursday.
I don't think it will work because of the LPNs as well, and because of all the different simulation labs. It's just, there's more going on than just second level. And and Miss Turley and Miss Burroughs together had to fix it. The reason adult nursing is so complicated is because there are 57 of y'all and the LPNs. they can only be there on certain days according to contracts that were signed. And it's just very complicated. There's like more involved that even I understand. And it's just, and I know that part's not going to change at this point in the game.
I do have a question, and I'm not sure if you'll have the answer, but our clinical doesn't last the entire semester, correct?
Right.
And so when the clinical portion goes away, does something pick up in its place?
Yes. So you have more clinical. It's just the clinical in the hospital will stop. So we are working on that also is complicated because of the number of students that we have. We're working on a schedule now where the remaining, each pediatric group they're missing a week of clinical, right? You all are going to go 2 weeks to the hospital and you're all missing a week. So that has to be made up, and that will continue to happen on the Mondays and Tuesdays, but we don't have the schedule exactly just yet. I don't want.
And I was just curious on.
Yeah, that's why we haven't given it to you guys yet, because we're still trying to figure it all out.
Okay, thank you.
This is unprecedented. You know, we don't know how to. There's no guidebook, and we have more students than we've ever had, and it's just unprecedented. And we're trying to work together and figure it out. And each level is its own beast, but yet we're all sharing the same 3 rooms and 1 sim lab, and it's just complicated.
Miss Knighton, I was also going to say, I think the reason I wasn't one of the people that was even going to go to class. My internet works fine. I don't have any like conflicting times or anything. But I think the reason so many people for adult nursing wanted to go on campus is it kind of seemed at first that if you were on campus, you wouldn't have to pay for ProctorU. And you can do with that information what you will, but that's, to me, when I read that email, that is what that seemed like.
Yes, and I know that, and we discussed that yesterday, and that's not fair, and it's not possible anyway. So we all recognize real quick that I have the same students, and I don't have everyone wanting to come to campus. So. And Ms. Humphrey wasn't trying to start stuff. She was simply trying to ask what Ms. Burroughs told her to ask. And Ms. Burroughs didn't realize, because she hasn't dealt with ProctorU. She just didn't realize. If you say it like that, then they're going to think that they don't have to, it was just messy. And
no, I completely understand that. I didn't think that anyone was trying to start anything with that. I was just letting you know that that's probably the reason so many people want to be on campus.
I agree. Yeah, I saw that.
In your email, it was obvious that we would still have to pay for ProctorU.
Well, but I took a chance by saying that, and I confessed in the faculty meeting. I said, I told them straight up, because it's not fair to do it any other way. And I know that our testing center only holds 15 students, even though we might have 50 computers in there. With the 6 feet apart, we can only have 15 students. And that is not just for nursing students. That's everybody in science, nursing, and allied health. And it's only open on Wednesdays and Thursdays for certain time periods. And it's complicating things. That we have another testing center as well. Those are for people who really, really need it. Nursing school is expensive. It sucks. But guess what, guys? I've been out 20 years and I still owe $42,000. I don't feel sorry for you. Most of that is from my bachelor's, not my master's. It's expensive, and it doesn't come free. I wish it did, but it doesn't. And especially right now, it's hard. I didn't get a grant. I didn't get a scholarship. I had to do all on loans. So you just got to do what you got to do, and we're going to have to not dwell on it. I just don't even think about it. It's a car note that I'll have till I die. And that's just what it is. If I think about it, it's upsetting. So don't think about it. Pay your $15, come to school if you need to, and I'll put you in a room. Otherwise, let's just keep rolling on. And supposedly everybody else, when I told Ms. Burrows and the faculty, I shared what I told you guys, and that ended up being the solution to our problem. And supposedly that's what everyone's going to say. We had
Now,
hoped we could figure out a better way, but there's just not one.
I just wanted to
so
say-
across the board, oh, sorry, Zoe, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for communicating, because I feel like for me personally, my frustration is just lack of communication, and I'm a preparer. So I get anxious if I don't know what's coming. Am I going to have to pay extra for a test because I don't know what date we're picking? And so I understand the struggle that the faculty is having in trying to figure it out, and I can respect that. I just felt like everything was up in the air and I had no idea what's going on or what to expect. And so for you to actually take time out of your class time to explain it to us, I do appreciate that.
Well, I understand too. I have the same stress. I don't like feeling out of the loop. And it is stressful. So, and I know that Ms. Humphrey is very, very, very stressed because her class situation is much more difficult than mine, with y'all only having peds on Friday and both of my, I know it's harder for her, and I don't know that, that she'll be as inclined to have a conversation about it, just because she may not trust herself to stay calm just because of her own emotional state with it. So I just wanted to share what's going on. I'm not trying to gossip about other teachers or anything like that. I just understand that you're worried, and we're getting it straight, and we all are right there with you.
Miss
I have one
Megan. Oh, sorry.
Hey, Meyer. Monica, go ahead. Sorry.
Regardless of what class we have to go to the school for, we have to bring our own computer, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And
That's it.
Meyer, what you got?
Okay, so I don't know if you have the answer for this, but did Ms. Humphrey ever mention that we have to do the case studies on a Thursday for 2.5 hours straight?
I have no idea about that.
I was thinking, because if we really don't have to do the case studies, like, it might be helpful to us, but if just taking an hour from a 2.5 hour just to test, it probably helps the students a lot.
I don't know anything about that. I don't know.
Okay. All righty.
All right, guys, I'm gonna let you go, and all you got to do is review and prepare and make sure your test questions are posted. And we'll see
Thanks.
you later. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.